Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into a really intense and tragically fatal series of events that shook Marietta, Georgia back in July 2026. We're going to break down how a totally normal Tuesday afternoon suddenly spiraled into a chaotic crime scene and a massive tactical police standoff. We'll look at the timeline, the investigation, and really focus on exactly why this situation escalated to the point where an entire suburban neighborhood was completely paralyzed.
So why did a quiet suburban afternoon end with police snipers literally posted up on residential rooftops? I mean, it's a jarring image, right? One minute, it's just a regular day at the Stratford Ridge Apartments on Delk Road. The next, the whole area is locked down tight by heavily armed tactical units. To wrap our heads around this extreme response, we've got to look at the sheer scale of what law enforcement actually thought they were dealing with in those first few chaotic minutes.
The immediate reaction from the Cobb County Police Department was, well, it was massive. We're not just talking about a couple of patrol cars rolling up. We're talking K-9 units actively sniffing through the complex, specialized tactical teams locking down the perimeter, and police choppers in the air scanning the whole area from above. They kicked off this highly structured grid search, methodically combing through the woods and parking lots. The air was practically vibrating with sirens and chopper blades.
Part 1. The Suburban SWAT Standoff.
By late Tuesday afternoon, that massive search narrowed down to one very specific target. Based on the initial leads they had, officers surrounded a residential building, and neighbors were told to shelter in place while negotiators tried to make contact. Just imagine being a resident there for a second, being told to lock your doors, stay away from the windows, all while snipers are setting up on the roof right next door. It turned into this incredibly tense, hours-long standoff, entirely because law enforcement genuinely believed an armed and dangerous suspect was barricaded just feet away from innocent people.
Part 2. 2:34 p.m. The initial gunfire.
Now, the craziest part about this is just how fast it all went down. At exactly 2:34 p.m., a sudden burst of gunfire completely shatters the peace at 2650 Delk Road. Just moments later, a vehicle, clearly caught in the crossfire, loses control and violently crashes into a stationary object. When the first officers arrive on scene, they find a really harrowing sight. Slumped in the wreckage is 19-year-old Giovani Scruggs, with a single, devastating gunshot wound to the head. And despite emergency crews working frantically right there at the scene, and trauma docs fighting for him at the hospital, Scruggs tragically doesn't make it. So a fatal shooting in broad daylight, that is the catalyst. That's what triggered the massive police response and the standoff that followed.
19 and 18. Obviously, 19 was the age of the victim, Giovani Scruggs, but as we're about to see, 19 and 18 also happen to be the ages of the two primary suspects. It's just a stark, really somber reminder of how incredibly young these guys were and how their lives were permanently altered or lost entirely in a matter of seconds that afternoon.
Part 3. The false barricade. So, back to the standoff. Initially, panicked witness statements and early leads strongly pointed to the shooter being barricaded inside that nearby building. And you know, that fog of war is exactly why the Stratford Ridge standoff happened in the first place. Law enforcement, they have to act on the best intel they have right then and there to protect the public. But hours later, when the SWAT team finally makes a dynamic entry with breaching tools and ballistic shields, the reality was completely different. The apartment was dead empty.
The official report puts it bluntly. The apartment was empty. The suspects had managed to slip away before the perimeter was fully established. And wow, this is a massive turning point in our explainer. The suspects beat the clock. That whole physical manhunt, the snipers, the lockdown neighborhood, it was all focused on a ghost. So detectives had to instantly shift gears. They couldn't rely on a physical perimeter anymore. They had to pivot entirely to an intelligence-based operation.
Part 4. Digital footprints and arrests.
The Cobb County Crimes Against Persons Unit started working around the clock, using a really methodical three-step approach to close the net. Step 1. They painstakingly gathered all the physical forensic evidence left behind at the complex and inside the crashed car. Step 2. Since the physical perimeter busted, they went digital. They started tracking the suspect's digital footprints and relentlessly interviewing known associates. And Step 3. They cast a wider net, pulling and reviewing surveillance footage from all across the Marietta area to literally retrace the suspect's steps after they slipped away.
And you know what? That tireless, old-fashioned police work actually paid off. By Thursday, authorities announced a definitive end to the manhunt. They arrested two brothers from Marietta, 19-year-old Markeise K. Adams and 18-year-old Mareece D. Adams. Remember those numbers from earlier? Well, despite the initial chaos of Tuesday, both young men were taken into custody without any further incident. The charges, as you'd expect, are severe:
felony murder, and aggravated assault. They were booked right into the Cobb County Adult Detention Center, where they're sitting right now with absolutely zero chance of bond.
Part 5. An ongoing investigation.
While the community is understandably still shaken, Cobb County Police have made it very clear this is still a highly active case. Forensic teams are out there right now continuing to analyze the evidence, and with authorities actively hinting that we might see additional charges or even more arrests as the timeline gets fully reconstructed, it really makes you wonder, what missing pieces from the tragedy at Stratford Ridge are still out there waiting to be uncovered? What other secrets will the forensics reveal about those chaotic minutes right before that massive standoff began? It's a sobering thought, and it definitely leaves us waiting to see what the final pieces of this tragic puzzle will actually look like. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.